Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Mike at Webolutions, and our title for the webinar today is Digital Marketing Strategies to Make Your Organization Famous. It's my pleasure to be with you. Also with me here in the room is my colleague, Jack Schneider. He's going to poke his head around here. Hi, Jack. Say hello to the folks, Jack.
Hello to the folks.
Jack. We rehearsed this. Okay. Tune in next month where we get that right, you know. Jack's going to be helping me out with the webinar. And I'll give you some housekeeping and some functionality notes about how we're going to do this and move through our content today. I do want to go ahead and start us moving forward. I do appreciate your time and the fact you've chosen to spend some of it here with us. A little bit about us. Some people who were logged in, I noticed, already know us. Do the Carol Burnett ear tug for you there. But some don't. So very quickly here, Webolutions, within 90 days of there being a web, there was a Webolutions. We were designing and crafting and launching websites in that time. We've been doing it now for 25 years. There's no one more experienced anywhere at building and marketing new websites with marketing anything on the web. And that includes content marketing and thought leadership, which we're going to talk about today. Since 1994, we're in our 25th year, 2,000 websites. Our honors and recognitions include being a top SEO company in the U.S., search engine optimization company in the U.S. For the last 2 years running by two different organizations. And we last year won the Communicators Award of Excellence, which is arguably the most prestigious award that an agency of our size in our industry can win. So we're very proud of it. Our purpose is to help passionate people to thrive. And so we're very glad to have some passionate people joining this webinar today and participating with us. I also wanted to give you a little bit about me. My name is Mike Hanberry. Media and marketing has been my passion for as long as I can remember, since before I grew up, and maybe someday I actually will grow up. I joined the company here in 2010. I was brought in initially to lead the online marketing department. I mentioned my MBA and my inbound marketing certification. I'd like you to know a couple things. One, we have a culture of learning here. One of our values is that we constantly improve. And so that certification is just a reflection of that. And I thought it also might help to help you frame the perspective from which the webinar was crafted, and acknowledge that there are different ones, and we don't believe that in an hour we can give you all the answers. But we do believe that that we can help you, give you some tools and some tricks, if you will, to help you move along the goal, and that is our that is our goal today. So thank you for that. And let's see. Oh, before I move on to that, I'm sorry. I want to start with a little poll. I want to ask you a little question about why you might be joining us today. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch this. And we're asking you a question. And the question is, what is your primary goal for making your company or organization famous? Whichever one of these questions, whichever one of these answers, rather, speaks to you most effectively, which is closest to you, please choose that answer. And we're going to come back to this one. And I see everybody's got that. Generate more leads, increase your close rate, or to increase your partnering referrals and other business opportunities. I really appreciate your participation. I'm going to minimize this and go back to the presentation. I'll let y'all continue to respond. Great response rate so far. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the engagement. We'll come back and show the results of the poll in just a bit. For now, let's cover a little bit more webinar content. Common challenges. This is probably some of the things that have brought you here today. What common challenges do people who are in businesses and organizations who are trying to take a thought leadership position encounter? There are many. These are probably the 5 most common that we hear and that we encounter ourselves as we launch and implement and test and work to implement our own thought leadership strategies. The development of a strategic approach. What is a strategic approach? What kind of research, what kind of planning needs to go in and to be considered, and the priorities therein? What means the most to me as opposed to somebody else? Choosing the right technology and systems. This is hard. It's often, especially for companies and organizations that have legacy systems and have ways that we do things. Changing, adapting, eliminating, creating new technology and system and upgrades. We have in the office today one of our a business manager and her CEO who came to us and said whom we've helped to digitize and automate a number of systems that have actually allowed the business manager and the CEO to turn into business manager and CEO of an organization. I'm very proud of the progress that we're making with them, and it's a pleasure to have them in the office today. A meaningful measurement of thought leadership efforts. Data is one of those things. Once upon a time, big data was very sexy, and now it's an enemy. There's too many numbers. And so what numbers should we focus on? We'll talk about, one of the things we'll talk about today is actionable insights for your social media plan, but it's important always to know what numbers are the most impactful for you and what you can focus on. And here's the trick on that. If you intend to change it, if you're willing to change it, and if changing it will be meaningful for you, those are the measurements on which you focus. Your competitive landscape, we see this all the time in search engine optimization in particular. People trying to score on search engines for terms that either they stand no chance of scoring for because the terms are too competitive, or that once you get there, it's not going to matter because because Google semantically has determined that people who are searching that actually want something else. We've gone through that recently. Once upon a time, it was very important for us to score for a term called web development. Somebody typed in web development into Google. Now, when you type that in, Google's organic returns tell you that they believe that people are trying to learn how to do that themselves. Not part of our business model. We've changed our strategy to reflect that. Consistently generating authentic, fresh, original, and valuable content. That is probably the biggest thing for everybody, and we are going to delve very deeply into that today, at least as much as you can do in an hour's time. And I'm keeping an eye on the clock as we go, y'all. I used to be an instructor for a master's program at a private university here in town, and I always found it very beneficial to define the terms before you launch into a discussion about them. And so I wanted to define thought leader. This is our operating definition of what a thought leader does. It comes from thoughtleadershiplab.com. That's one of the tricks about generating some trust is if you make an assertion, attribute your assertion from whence it came. Opinion leaders and the go-to people in their field of expertise, who move and inspire people with innovative ideas, turn ideas into reality, and show others how to replicate their success. We bolded the important points there. Inspire people with innovative ideas and show others how to replicate themselves. That's what a thought leader does. And I want to ask everybody, with that being the definition, if you would please send us a chat. Use the chat function. I failed to mention this. Jackie's supposed to be keeping me honest on this stuff. How to ask questions during the webinar. I'm going to bring myself back on camera here because my mom thinks I'm very handsome. How to ask a question on this webinar. We have a limited amount of time and a lot of content to cover. I want your questions. We have some points in the webinar where we've said we're going to pause for questions, and we'll try to answer those. And if we do not get to your question on the webinar, we will address it either in a broadcast follow-up to all attendees or some one-on-one. And for any one-on-one follow-up or any questions that you don't want to ask on the webinar or whatever, you can always give us a call, 303-300-2640, or an email to info@webolutions.com. And Jack and I'll be the team that are helping you out on that, okay? Hope that helps. We are going to pause for questions in here in just a little bit. For now, again, I'll just repeat my request to, if you have a thought leader, someone that you follow as a thought leader, would you please just send us a chat with that name or a list of names? One chat message with a whole bunch of names is fine, or a bunch of chat messages that, as they occur to you, is just as good. I really appreciate the engagement. We're getting some good feedback on that. What are you showing me?
Brian, Kimberly here mentioned Brian.
Great, Kimberly. Hey, thank you, Kimberly with Remax out in Aurora. Good to see you. Thank you for joining in today. And we'll look into Brian, and maybe we'll have the opportunity to discuss to look at him a little deeper. So appreciate that. Let's move on. And is this where I was going to bring the polls back up? Keep me honest on these things, Jack.
Let's see. What do we got here?
I'm going to move forward, all right? And you just tell me when I'm supposed to do that. So what are some results of effective thought leadership? All right, one is increase. I'm going to bring it back up after this. It seems like appropriate there. So results of effective thought leadership: increased brand reach and awareness, more opportunities for your business or organization. Those may be sales opportunities. They may be other kinds of opportunities, depending on the structure of your business, or perhaps your nonprofit. I know we've got some of our nonprofit friends joining the webinar today, so hello to you. Better engagement with the clients and prospects, better engagement, better retention, greater referral, marketplace differentiation. All of us do things, almost all of us do things that other people also do. Now, are you going to be perceived as a commodity, as a product or a service on which your margins vary, which is a fine way to go to business? It's certainly legitimate. Your opportunity for thought leadership is tied inexorably to your ability to provide a fresh take on it. If you are retweeting something with which you agree, that's not leadership. That person who sent the tweet, who posted the original article, who had the original innovative, fresh thought, that's the leader that you're following, okay? Now, it's okay for you to agree, but that's not thought leadership content. We need to develop a stance that we have and a way of coming at it that no one else had in order to generate followership and be true thought leaders. And easier attraction and retention of talent. Boy, this is a thing that's changed over the last several years. Whereas once it was pretty easy to find somebody who needed a job, and it was difficult to find a place where that person might find a home for a while. That has really reversed. The war for talent, as has been threatened, is on, and people have no reason or little reason to stay with a company that doesn't inspire them and that doesn't connect them to something that's larger and greater than themselves. So your opportunity for differentiation also speaks to your ability to keep the right people around. We doing okay?
We're doing okay. Let's go ahead. Do you want to just see the poll?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Jack. Yeah. Thank you for keeping me honest on that. All right. So here we go. And we'll pull that back up. And these are results. 65% of us, okay, that's more than I thought, are looking for generating more sales or leads, or we'll say revenue. Some of our nonprofits out there may have looked at that as a fundraising opportunity, and that's perfectly consistent with that business model. Increased closing percentage, interesting, okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that, just a little bit about top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel strategies, and then about 30%, about 1 in 3, want to increase partnering referrals and other business opportunities. Okay. Okay.
Real quickly, Michael, go ahead and reshare the PowerPoint screen here in just a moment. We apologize, folks.
Okay.
There's a little bit of technical difficulty right there.
All right. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that gives us a thank you all for doing that. That gives us a little bit of an idea about whom we're speaking and how we might emphasize some points in the presentation. Great turnout, great engagement. I really appreciate that. And we are talking about generating more sales and leads, and then a subset about increased partnering referrals and business opportunities. The few of you who did answer increased closing percentage, I think you're going to want to perk up your ears, in particular at when we start talking about marketing automation, which is like the third of 4 main areas that we're going to address today. And without further bloviation, let me move us forward. Are there, Jack, we're supposed to do questions here. I keep wanting to do that. Not quite yet. Okay. After this next part. Very good. Very good. Okay. Let's talk about key elements of thought leadership. Sorry about that, y'all. Thanks for bearing with us. We talked about the results that you want. So let's talk about how to get there. What are key elements of thought leadership? First of all, is authenticity. Okay. If Mike ever has a webinar that tells you how to fix your car or build your deck, you should not tune in, because Mike doesn't know what the heck he's talking about with any of those things. I'm not the handiest person, much to my wife's chagrin. But you got to know. You actually do need to know what you're talking about. Leadership implies others are following. Some of you have probably heard me say this, tell this story before, but it's one of my favorites. When I went back to grad school as a grown-up, one of my leadership professors posed this question to a leadership class. He said, I'm going to look you in the eye as I say this. He looks at the class, all these grown-ups, and he says, what do leaders need? And as you might imagine, the answers came cascading down: character, integrity, tenacity, perseverance. And all those are true, of course. And he let all that come and go, and then he looked back at us and he said, followers. Leaders need followers. If nobody's following you, then you have nothing to lead. So we need to generate followership. How do we do that? Inspiring people, innovating ideas, and showing others how to succeed by creating value in our relationship and in our communications. All right, gaining followership. Let's speak to that very quickly. How do we do this? First of all, stand for something. Know your purpose, okay? Have an idea where you want to go and have principles and values that define who you are and how you speak and how you treat people, and frame the experience of working with you, of partnering with you, of your voice and your tone and the things that you talk about. Apple is a great example of that, but I won't go totally into it. Harley Davidson sells motorcycles, right? And they make more money off their paraphernalia than they do off their motorcycles. And people tattoo their logo on their skin, so it's permanent. And why do people do that? Because they like the motorcycles? No. Because Harley Davidson isn't selling motorcycles; they're selling freedom. And we believe in freedom and believe and associate with that. So know your purpose, all right? If you intend to generate some followership, stand for something. Understand and speak to your audience's pain, obstacles they confront, the transformation available to them, and how they can achieve their goal with you as their guide. It is not by coincidence. It is very much by strategy and formula that I led the presentation by giving you my bona fides, the bona fides of the company for which I have the privilege of working, and that I understand the challenges that you and I are both confronting as we go through this experience. I asked y'all for some examples of thought leaders you follow. Here are some of ours. Reading clockwise from the top left, that is the very familiar bald skull of one Mr. Seth Godin. To his right is Simon Sinek, he of Start With Why fame, and a 17-minute TED Talk that if you've interacted with me, you've probably viewed this or heard about this video. Below Simon there is Dory Clark. And to Dory's left is James Collins. Now, all of these people are people that we follow here as a company, or that I tend to enjoy. And the things on the right are all the things they have in common. Seth Godin talks about marketing. That's the only thing that he talks about. Within marketing, he's very diverse, but he keeps it to marketing, and it's all within a centralized theme. They are prolific across multiple media, all four of these people, right? They write books, and they do TED Talks, and they grant interviews, and they do podcasts, and they write blog articles, and they have a very integrated execution strategy for content creation and proliferation across multiple media. And if you go to Dory Clark's Facebook page, for example, and you leave a comment on something that she has that she has written, you are about 99% likely to get a direct response eventually from Dory. When she sees it, she will respond to it. And that's pretty much the case for all these guys. It doesn't happen immediately. It happens when they get to it, because they are authentically engaging and rewarding their audience by saying, I see you, and I acknowledge you, and I do wish to dialogue with you at some level. But perhaps most importantly, they relay transformational information in story form. What do I mean by that? How can we do that? Let's move right in to some branding strategies to set your message apart. We are going to talk first about a system that has been developed by another thought leader of ours that we follow, named Donald Miller. This is taken from a book. It's called Building a Story Brand. It's pretty much required reading here at Webolutions. This, ladies and gentlemen, I should have warned you before we got here. This, folks, is, as Miller will tell you, Donald Miller's a screenwriter, and he'll tell you this. And by the way, I've gotten the opportunity to meet him. There's no pretense there. He's a regular guy. When I say he'll tell you this, yeah, he'll have the conversation, just tell you this. this is the formula for every Hollywood movie you've ever seen. What he told me is whether it's Star Wars or Tommy Boy, it's the exact same movie, all right? And you can switch out the characters and switch out the problems and so forth, but here's the formula. And and to illustrate it, Miller frequently and primarily uses a very popular movie, which happens to be one that framed my childhood in Star Wars. Everybody knows Luke Skywalker, so let's talk about Luke and his character. Luke's our hero in this story. So what happens in Luke's life for us to create a movie around, right? Luke has a problem. Let's see, what's his problem? He's just, first of all, the movie starts off with pretty regular old teenage angst, right? He's bored, and he doesn't like where he is, and that's pretty much how I was as a teenager. You too, Jack? Yeah, so we were pretty much had our own Luke Skywalker things going on in that regard. But what Luke, that didn't happen to Luke, that didn't happen to us is his aunt and uncle got killed, and then unbeknownst to him, there was a big mean guy named Darth Vader who wanted to kill him, all right? So suddenly my problems don't seem so big that I was confronting as an adolescent. All right, so what happens to Luke is he goes and he meets a guy, crazy old hermit Ben Kenobi, who lives out there in a cave on the frontier in the desert with the sand people and the Jawas and whatnot. And Kenobi gives him a plan. As you learn the ways of the Force, Luke, and learn to wield a lightsaber, right? And calls them to action. Luke, we got to go slumming and find somebody who's as desperate as we are to get off this rock, who may have a ship and can take half a bribe and half a promise to help us move this plot line forward. And fortunately for all moviegoers, that is exactly what happens. It would have been a much less interesting series had they not encountered Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon. And by the way, parsec is not a unit of distance, so that's a whole other thing. And then that action is confronted with choices. Real quickly, y'all, I'm going to come back on camera and just say, so there's two things going on in every movie and in every story that you're going to craft. Your hero, we'll talk about who your hero is. We're probably figuring this out already. Your hero has two things: an external goal, right? And in Luke's case, it's blow up the Death Star, okay? And an internal goal. And this is really what the movie ends up being about. It's about, does Luke have what it takes to overcome his internal demons and the obstacles that he creates for himself, and that the world is constantly manufacturing for him to achieve that external goal. And you as the thought leader, you as the guide, are going to pull your audience through to achieve their goal, all right? And bring them to a result that is going to be either triumph or tragedy, right? And it's a good thing for all of us, I guess, who love those movies that womp rats aren't any smaller than 2 meters. That's a pretty tight shot that Luke hit there. So this is where we pause for questions. Yeah. Very quickly, okay, I'm running very behind. So I want to, before we, and this is the next thing we'll get into is actionable insights to implement your social media plan, so stay tuned. Let's pick one question. I'm running behind, sorry guys. Let's see, what's a good one here? These are all good. How does Webolutions embody these thought leaders' values into his work? Okay. Well, I mentioned Donald building a story brand. Recommend that book. It's pretty much required reading here, and it does go into detail about these points that I've still left on the screen for story branding. And if you haven't, Simon Sinek's TED Talk. It's a 17-minute TED Talk. Start with why. You can find it by just Googling Sinek why, S-I-N-E-K. Yeah, Jack's sending me a note here. We're gonna in our follow-up from our automated follow-up from the webinar. More on that later. We will include the link to that TED Talk. I'm gonna do another question here. I'll do two more. What are examples of successful messaging focus on transformation? Examples of successful messaging that focus on transformation. Great question. And I would just say that present messaging that highlights the transformation. We'll talk more about this right now, as a matter of fact, but how your product or offering will improve your reader's life or your viewer's life, make them happier, more fulfilled, more techniques coming up. And the next question, how do I know which social media channels to use for my business? Okay, that's we'll just take that as a segue and move right into actionable insights. Implement your social media plan. Thank you all for the questions. We're not going to have time to get to them all. Again, happy to address them offline. We are going to pause. We have another point in the webinar later on to pause and deal with additional questions. And we're always here, 303-300-2640, info@webolutions.com. Okay, social media, broadly defined, and I'll spare you that, but just saying, look, where should I be? One of the things that we work with our clients on is you cannot be everywhere. Where should you be? And that's going to be the opportunity to create most impact. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And here's what I mean by that. Facebook, for example. And if there's an 800-pound gorilla in the social media room, that's the one still. And I'm aware that the young people don't go there anymore. I have young people who live in my house. So I'm aware of where the market is moving and where the market is. But if you want to look at engagement and usage rates and volume, it is impossible to ignore that channel. However, having said that, and it is true that decision makers and people who are executives at companies and executive directors of nonprofits are active on Facebook. But ask yourself, when they go there, what's their mindset? They're probably also on LinkedIn, for example, and when they go on LinkedIn, they're not there for any other reason than to do business-oriented things. Whereas, so you can get middle of funnel or bottom of funnel and closer to call to action and more solution-oriented, perhaps, in the content you create and publish on those channels, or in the call to action that you publish on those channels, or in the imagery that you use, or the way that you first present your content on that channel, as opposed to Facebook, where I've gone on to see, I didn't make it to my niece's wedding because I live in West Texas and it was in Eastern Pennsylvania, and I have work and stuff, but I do want to keep up with these people and see their pictures, and I don't mind, really, if someone has behaviorally targeted me and said, this is relevant to you, but just understand that my mindset's different, and so the way you present that content on the medium is different, and the culture is also different. LinkedIn being what it is, just to keep comparing those two, you can be a lot more direct in the business benefit and the result that what you're offering here, whereas Facebook is more of a t-shirt network. We're here hanging out, and maybe I can help you kind of thing. And that's an oversimplification, but the point is if we gave you a list right now of all the social networks that are available to you and all the apps and all the different ways to engage with your audience directly, that list would be incomplete and inaccurate an hour from now. There is that kind of dynamism in the industry. So be where you're going to be good at, be where your audience is, and understand what you're going to do when you get there based on the way that the network operates. Here's another frequent question. How often should I post content? And the short answer is when you have something new and valuable. Now remember, you're always growing your audience. You're always seeking to grow your audience. So if you have a piece of content that you feel you've saturated within a certain audience, maybe you present it differently to another audience. Maybe there's a different way that there are probably multiple points of value within something that you've created. So maybe you emphasize that a little bit differently, perhaps to a different audience. But when you have new and valuable content, that is when you post. And I understand that, and we are going to talk a little bit more about how that gets published. And StoryBrand, again, is a great way to frame that up. Frequency and timing, building relationships, understanding network culture. We've talked about those things, but I just want to touch in the interest of time. I want to talk about this last bullet point that says social requires a paid strategy. Okay, I'm going to come back on here and say hi. The social requires a paid strategy. Here's the deal, y'all. It is free to have a Facebook account. It is free to use this as an example, or a LinkedIn account, or a Facebook page, or a LinkedIn page. Those are free. It's free to put your content on Facebook. It's free to put something on your page and publish it. Now, if you want somebody to see that content, you need to put some money behind it. All right, that's what costs money, and it's where the rubber meets the road. It's no accident that Facebook structured their model that way after much trial and tribulation. So that's to say, clicking the boost button is not a strategy. Who needs to see it? What's the value to them, etc.? How do you frame this? How do you present it to them? And those are strategic elements that should all be satisfied before you actually spend the money to promote it. But until You gain a following until you are recognized as a thought leader. Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, they don't have to boost posts, for example, all right, to give the extreme example. Eventually, yeah, you can craft content that's engaging with your audience. We're like Apple, right? When Apple posts something new, people come. They can't wait. They've told their social networks and their RSS feeds and so forth that when that new announcement comes, I want to know. I want the app update. I want the push update. I want to know exactly when it happens, okay? And they're able to generate the kind of loyalty that people camp out on the concrete going only across the street to Starbucks, which is another example, to when the new iPhone rolls out, when the rest of us are just going to wait a week or two and go buy it, and buy a less buggy, less expensive version of it, right? Once you generate that level of thought leadership, well, then you can back off and probably not have to get more strategic or stop putting money behind it, because you're going to generate the kind of engagement and referral traffic. Hey, you should listen to this person. She's got something to say that's relevant to you. But until then, you should have a strategy to proliferate your content by buying your way into people's news feeds. Another frequent question: what type of content do I post? And the short answer here is you need a mosaic, y'all. As I talked about as we talked about with Sinek and Dory Clark and Collins and Seth Godin, and I'm sure some of the ones that you've given us here today via the chat. They do all of those things. They write whole books. They write white papers. They write ebooks. They do videos. And these things are true. I mean, people read less and less, but there's still an audience for it. So video, imagery, moving things need to be a part of your strategy, and maybe a central and maybe a majority of your mosaic. But in general, whatever it is, it needs to inspire with innovative ideas and show others how to replicate your success. Sorry to be a broken record on that, but obviously it's pretty important. Okay. Now, what should I talk about? You talk about your hero and the transformation, your character, and the transformation that is available to them. 80% of that messaging should focus on that transformation. Now, what's the other 20%? Well, we said, like most of our respondents, that they were here to thought leadership to generate more leads. All right, so when can I ask for the sale? I have always referred to this as social capital. I've also heard it called as debits and credits. And this is if your thought leadership begins with, hey, buy my stuff, it's not thought leadership, and you're going to get turned off pretty quickly. All right. And I see this with some of you who are on the webinar. I follow you on social media and see what you're doing. And I actually think that some of you are doing very well with this particular aspect of it. Kim Loveland, I'm looking in your direction. You earn capital, and it takes a while, y'all, to establish this and to establish trust before somebody starts retweeting you and bringing people and saying, this is somebody that I think you should, that you can trust, that you could follow. And I'm always, once you've earned enough capital to ask for it, then yeah, you can say, you can reach out and say, hey, let's talk about doing some business. But it is necessary to always let people know that if they need to act right now, you're open to help. 303-300-2640, info@webolutions.com. And we also believe very strongly in the creation of indirect calls to action to build value and enlarge your community. Let me show you an example of that here in our next section. Is this a good place to pause and take questions?
Yeah, let's take them right here.
Okay, very good. Very good, thank you. Then let's do that right now. Before we get into marketing automation, I'll just bring that last slide back up and see what we've got here, Jack. All right, let's. Good. How many touch points should I include? No, we'll save that. We'll save that one. We'll save that one. We'll save that one. I tell you what. You know what? All these questions we're going to address. We're going to address here in the at least the ones that I'm able to see right now. We're going to address here in the next section. So let me go ahead and do that. Is that right? I don't want to miss out on anything. Yeah. let's just go on, y'all. We're going to run short on time anyway. How marketing automation grows your business. We're going to talk about marketing automation because anymore, it's a big unknown for a lot of people. But y'all, I'm going to look you in the eye when I say this. It's table stakes anymore. All right. If you're a business manager or an executive director or a CEO, and you've heard this, or you're a marketing director or anything like that, you're in our audience today, and you've heard of us talk about building a story brand and creating content and framing it in this, you're like, well, where will I get the time to actually create the content? And I hear you, right? I feel you. And the short answer to that is marketing automation, right? And we call it marketing automation, but it automates a lot, right? These systems that are available now, which once the purview of the enterprise, as you might imagine, right? Technology changes, and the idea is to bring this capability to everybody, and it's here right now, all right? That small businesses like Webolutions are employing very effectively to increase your engagement and to increase your close rate and to generate leads from things like the content, thought leadership content, and the indirect calls to action that you create. So if your goals are those that were presented earlier, any of those three really, excuse me, any of those three, and if you look at this and you say, man, I need time, bear with me and stay tuned for this brief discussion on marketing automation. Here's our definition. What does marketing automation mean? It means using software to automate and simplify tasks, not just emails, tasks. I'm looking at Jack right now because he and I use this all day, every day. Yeah. That otherwise would take a lot of daily time and effort. Tasks like sending email drip campaigns, and there's lots more. And we have an ebook I want to offer to you, and that we'll link out in a follow-up email, but you can have any time on 25 things that every small business should automate. And you can probably hear the passion in my voice when I say that because it's made a huge difference for me and for us and for our clients, these systems. I really encourage you to take a look at this and to broaden what you might believe marketing automation might mean. An easy example of a marketing automation is an ebook. It's not the only marketing not the only example. And I want to give you another example real quick. I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Another example of an indirect call to action is you might have a calculator on your website. A savings calculator. If you buy our windows, or you buy our siding, here's the amount of money that you're going to save. I see this on real estate websites quite a bit, where there's a mortgage calculator. And what gets lost when these things get created is you have to remember that you are not creating this functionality or this piece of content in order to solve a math problem for your website visitor. This needs to inspire thought, perhaps change a mindset, and convince somebody that the best way for them to get through this problem is to start listening to you, that you have a plan, that you have a unique way of approaching this, and that you are going to bring them through this challenge to help them achieve their goals. Show them how to do it, okay? The functionality is easy. The purpose behind it is what often gets lost. So let's talk about an ebook, though, as an easy example. Anybody with a background in content marketing knows this a very common structure to content marketing. You might create an ebook. You say, here's the content of the ebook. You can pull any number of blog post topics out of that ebook to repurpose your content. And I'm speaking again to how to make the most out of your time. If you want to create valuable content that speaks to your audience's problem, you publish it, you advertise it, perhaps through paid advertising on social media, a number of different ways. We'll show you another one here in a moment. You often frequently require something. Usually it's an email address in exchange for the piece of content that allows the download or here you go in some form or fashion. And then what marketing automation does is it allows a journey to launch. So, you know, anybody of y'all who know me know that I'm kind of a gem rat. I'm a little behind schedule on that because I've been working on a webinar. So if your goal is to be healthier or to be stronger or to lose weight or anything, and you buy the gym membership and that's all you do, you are not going to accomplish that goal. If I download your white paper, does that get me to where I want to go? Likely not, right? I mean, how many times did Obi-Wan have to go slap Luke upside the head and say, get focused here, boy, you know? I mean, Luke is coming in for the landing. He's got to shoot the Death Star. He's freaking out. And Obi-Wan has to come in and say, use the Force. Do what I told you. People need reminders to do what you told them to do. They need guidance, right? So frequent interaction and reminding. All right. So that's what these journeys can do in a thought leadership milieu. Direct versus indirect CTA. So let's talk about a CTA, call to action. So where might someone get an ebook? This is a snapshot of our website. This is our website homepage. And what you see here is a direct call to action there on the left, free consult with an expert, talk to Mike, or an indirect call to action for 7 high-performance website tips. If you download the ebook, if you click the left button, right, if you take the blue pill, if you click the left button, you can schedule a time to talk to me or just call me, right, or speak to someone here about your subject matter, about your needs. I see someone, meaning the sales department here, is 59175. So I look forward to speaking with you. The indirect call to action is, or download our ebook. Maybe you want some additional information. Maybe for whatever reason you're not ready to talk to anybody. Maybe you didn't come to the website for the purpose of talking to the sales department. Maybe you are actually just getting information. Well, that's fine. But we'd like the opportunity to engage with you and develop a relationship and earn some social capital and earn some debits over time to where when the opportunity was right, we got to talk to you about doing some business. And that's kind of how that works. So here's the one way that an indirect call to action is manifested. Now, if you download that ebook, you're going to be taken along a journey, an automated journey. Where's that journey going to take you? All right, what's that automated journey does? Again, inspires, encourages, and reminds you that there are things that you must do. You got to go to the gym on a regular basis, right? You have to forego the extra scoop of ice cream, etc. Right? Reminders, right? And good for you for doing these things. The tips on how to recognize and address disabilities and obstacles, your methods and tools to measure your progress. Congratulations, reward. You get all these things, and they can be extremely personalized anymore. And reminders of the rewards that you're earning by moving through this journey and making the choices that you're making. Will it end in your tragedy or your triumph? If you stick with us as your message, our hero, if you stick with us as your guide, we will lead you to triumph. All right. There's so much more that we can talk about here, and I mentioned some of these things. Marketing automation, repetitive, tedious tasks. Those sending of emails are just the beginning. Speeding your response to sales inquiries, helping you meet deadlines, improving overall efficiency, and making personal outreach. And again, 25 things every small business should automate. We'll be happy to share that link for that ebook. It will open your mind as to where your time might come, from. We use it here, and there are some questions that came in that, time permitting, at the end here, I'll readdress. But I noticed that I am about 5 minutes behind my timeline, so I'm going to move on here and give you an example. All right. One of the questions that we got is, oh yeah, well, how do you do it? Okay. And I think that's a legitimate question. And I want to honor that, and having anticipated that, one of our clients is Potatoes USA. Potatoes USA was originally the United States Potato Board. Every single potato grower in America is a member of it. This is the marketing organization for America's potato growers. Their goal is pretty simple. They want to get you to eat more potatoes, right? They want to get you to buy potatoes, and more than that, they want you to understand why you buy potatoes, because they figured out early on, or at least they had when we first started working with them in 2011, that your average potato buyer bought a bag of brown russet potatoes at the grocery store, brought them home, dropped it in the pantry, and didn't know why she did that, except that that's what you do. And it was good to have potatoes around. Half of those potatoes got thrown away because they got spoiled and weird looking. And so they before they ever met us, they knew that increased engagement and increased knowledge was going to be important for them. They also experienced, I'll go back a slide here, they also experienced something, and let me be clear, We are a member, a pleased and proud member of an agency team there, and in particular, their PR firm. I won't mention the name, but you've probably heard of them, and they are arguably the best in the business at what they do. Potatoes, as we call them here, Potatoes USA, is also loaded with experts. And both of these organizations, right, and other partners that are in the agency, have people with degrees and who have spent their entire careers on being knowledgeable about nutrition and about health and about how it impacts people's lives. And yet, every time there was a fad diet or some new information that came out on the internet, and sorry, were you sitting down? Yes, some of the information on the internet is not accurate or incomplete. You appreciate my sarcasm. I can see that. Thank you. Thank you. They were placed in a reactionary position. This would come out, and the PR firm and the organization and Potatoes would have to call up and say, "Hey, you got that wrong," or there's additional information that needs to be factored into this assertion that you're making, and they did as well as anybody reasonably could be expected to. But the news cycles being what they are, yeah, that was yesterday's story. You know, where the newsroom has moved on to something else, or when I wrote that, now I got to go refute that. I mean, it gets a little, it's a harder sell than being forward-looking. So we developed an action plan for Potatoes, and here's what it was. Right, it begins with this: let's acquire Google Page One organic results for Potato for terms like this that are relevant to our pursuits. And that we can score for, given the competition rate, that have the right kind of search volume, the right kind of returns. We have a whole strategy behind this, and ours, by the way, is the best anywhere. And we can also improve the website. Potatoes came to us with a website that we could improve upon, and were good enough to work with us to do that. And then once while we do that, we aggressively proliferate potato recipes and accurate, verifiable nutrition information. We generate content that is that has veracity because we are the experts. This is what we do, and look at our PhDs and look at our experience. This is you can take us seriously, and you should take us seriously. You should probably take us more seriously than anybody else in this particular subject. Potatoes are talking about rutabagas. You should probably not listen. We're talking about potatoes, man. It'll be hard to get a more verifiable expert in the field. And our goal was to move the organization from a reactionary position into a thought leadership position. What did we do? We rebuilt the website. We formed an SEO plan. We implemented the SEO plan on the website. We integrated this with their strategic and their public relations and their internal goals. We leveraged the relationships that they had when they got to us. We provided we moved content around. We developed a Pinterest-style interactive recipe system. Changed the positioning and the calls to action on the website. There are a number of things, and we talk about measurable results. Here are some measurable results, y'all. You know, of course, we pick there's a reason this is one of my favorite stories, and it has to do a lot with these numbers. This is that August through November comparison corresponds with the quarter of the previous year from which we launched the website to the quarter of the year after we launched the website, after the new website, changed the emphasis of how content was structured, put the calls to action in a different place, emphasized the email signups, and redid the recipes and did a number of other things. And these are the results that we did. And they're the real, I give you the percentages, there are also real numbers there. And while not everybody, you know, this kind of transformation is not available to everybody, this is certainly the type of results that are available by employing a system and working with partners and doing the hard work that it takes to generate, to achieve your goals. What does Potatoes look like today? This is an example, a screenshot from their website. I've looked at this several times over the past couple of weeks, as you might imagine, and I'm pretty sure that guy's airbrushed. He can't be in the gym any more often than I am, Jack. But he's breaking through, right? And here's all that strategy identified a specific path that for Potatoes to reassume prominence in the diets of athletes. So there are all these things potatoes do, and you can even see, when you get aggressive here, Jack, you can even see here that they've done an attribution, like at the by numbers, look at how potatoes can power athletic performance. They've even given the attribution for where that came from. I really appreciate that. But these facts about why potatoes power athletic performance, and the message is pretty clear. If health is a part of your life, if fitness is a part of your life, potatoes are a part of your life. And now, because they are so well positioned for all these terms about potato health, and potato nutrition, and potato calories, if you are a reporter and you are about to write a story about a diet that came out that said eat less, eat fewer potatoes, the veracity of your reporting is going to be questioned if you don't have a byline or have not consulted with this organization. And that is what we'll say is thought leadership. They publish content frequently. They speak at they speak and they engage with media and with other organizations, and they do a lot to proliferate their own message. We're very proud of the transformation that they've experienced and have been a part of that. So finally, to review this case study, if you will, against their brand story, who's the hero? Chances are it's you. Family meal planners. Who's making the choice about what goes on the plate at mealtime? And why am I making that choice? The hero in Potatoes' story is you. The hero in our story is our client, Potatoes USA. I'll let y'all ruminate on that for a minute, so you can start to put together how you piece together your content structure. Who's the guy? Who's the villain? Sorry. The villains are fad diets, incomplete and inaccurate information, and a limited understanding about the versatility of potatoes and their health benefits. Who's the guy? Potatoes USA in this case, right? And when you craft your thought leadership strategy and you implement that, you are going to be the guide for your heroes to whom you are speaking. What's their plan? The plan is subscribe to a weekly recipe e-newsletter. And when you read something on the internet that says something about how often or how infrequently or where potatoes should be in your diet, you check that with us, because we are the authority. We're the ones with the bona fides and the certificates, and we spend our whole lives focused on this. And so before you make a change, you check with us, all right? You subscribe to our e-newsletter, you read our content, and that's how you can be sure that you're doing the right thing for your family. And what's the transformation? Healthier you, healthier family. And you know who the hero is to your family? You are, for making these choices for them and helping them be healthy and happy. And the fact that you care enough to care this much so there's a story. I hope that helped answer that question, especially because I had that queued up ready to go. We do want to we are coming close to the end here. We will take a few more questions. I have some really excellent questions that have come through, particularly about marketing automation. I'll get to as many of those as I can. We want to make this offer to you. I hope you believe that we've generated enough debits, enough credits, and social capital to offer this to you. We are offering for a limited time and only for webinar attendees today. Story brand strategy development, a significant chunk off that, a free website SEO evaluation, a free evaluation of your current content marketing strategy, and to demonstrate a marketing automation system. $5,000 value is a conservative estimate. I'll put on that for free payments of $1,000. Schedule that now as soon as you can. 300-2640, info@webolutions.com. We will always be here, but the offer is limited. Before, I know that some of y'all probably have meetings at the top of the hour. I want to cue you up. We're going to do this next month. Our webinar next month on Wednesday, April 24th, noon to 1 here in Denver, is going to be growing sales by differentiating your brand experience on your website. Warning, it's another thing that's close to my heart, so I will probably have just as much to say, just as vociferously as I did here today. Growing sales by differentiating your brand experience on your website. Really appreciate the engagement today, guys. I'm going to put the offer up here, and we have a few more minutes, and so I am going to dive in for everybody who's still here and start responding to some of these questions. Thanks, and if you got to run, I totally appreciate it. Jack, we're going to send out a recording.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so everybody's going to receive a recording of this webinar. It'll come up in your email?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll all be here. So if you got to go, all of us will be here, and we totally understand. Really appreciate you spending your time with us today. Okay, questions. How many touch points should I include in my pre-built automated journey? Jack, Johnny on the spot, has anticipated this and actually given me some stats here, which I will, I'll just bring my happy face up here, my old lady glasses, while I read the data that Jack gave me. An interesting stat from the Annuitas group, thank you for the attribution. Nurtured lead makes 47% larger purchases than unnurtured. These are aggregate stats, obviously. Typically, customers won't make a decision until the 6th or 7th touch point. That's probably not news, but a good reminder to most of us, whether it's social, email, website visits, etc. So it may take some time, some multiple approaches before you get to the yes. One thing to note, automated campaigns are not a set it and forget about it system. Recommend you enhance your drip campaigns with new and compelling content, over consistent with that. And remember to make 80% of it about their transformation. How many touch points do I include? You should reach out and touch frequently. I mean, think about yourself in the other arena. You get busy. No matter how important this is. How did somebody put this to me recently? It's important versus urgent, right? The things that we reached out to you about are important. The urgent stuff gets on top of that. And I know that I have erred on the part of being too aggressive, you know, and follow up. And I'll own that. I suppose you'd rather have your sales department be too aggressive than too lackadaisical, but there may not be a one-size-fits-all to that. You got to listen to your community, to your prospect. Can you use automation campaigns for new and existing customers? Great question. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes. A customer, a new client for Webolutions who's come to us for a website, for example, might start getting emails generated by our automated system that says, here's what to expect when you sign on to have your website done by Webolutions. You're going to be assigned a project manager. She's going to take you through this 83-point checklist. Here's what's on the checklist. Here's the frequency with which you should expect to be contacted. Here are the decisions you're going to have to make. You're going to present it with wireframes. You got to approve the wireframes. You got to get presented with homepage design. You got to approve the homepage design. This is all going to be based on the work that we did back, you know. And so there's all. So yes, absolutely. Automated campaigns for new and existing customers. And good point. And two, the questions that everybody has, right? Here's your login instructions, right? How-to videos, stuff that everybody needs to know that you're having to answer again. These are the tedious tasks that prevent you from being a CEO or a business manager, right? Use your automated system to get them out of the way and use that to grow your sales and grow your business. Use that time and effort to grow your sales and grow your business. And do you have time for one more? We'll do one more. Okay. One more. I'm going to pick a good one. There was one that I saw come in that I really, really liked. How long should I wait to respond to an email contact request? He who hesitates is lost, okay? And I hear this all the time, right? We do disc profiles here at Webolutions, and by the way, that's something we can help you and your organization with. But it really came out as no surprise to me or anybody that I work with that Mike is very results-oriented and very action-oriented. I don't tend to let things sit for very long. It makes me very uncomfortable when there's not stuff moving and happening. I twitch and get weird. And so I respond almost immediately. Now, my take on that is this. You submitted something. You're sitting there typing. You're Googling. You're looking for somebody who does what I do. And you decided that I'm in your pipeline. And by the way, when somebody reaches out to you, they are, statistically speaking, about 58%. I forget where I read this, but it was a source that I thought was that I took seriously, whatever that's worth. They're about 58% of the way through their decision-making process. That means they've reached out to you. You're on the short list. Okay. Now, there's Newton's law of inertia, right? Or Newton's law of motion. An object will remain in motion until that motion is acted upon by an outside force, or at rest until acted upon by an outside force. So I'm believing that you're going to keep searching, you're going to keep Googling, and you're going to keep giving people your email address, your contact information until I interrupt that, all right? And I got to get you off the computer and on the phone with me, all right, to stop talking about, hey, I need this problem, and start offering you ways that we can guide you into resolving your problem and achieving your goals, identifying your villains, et cetera, if you know where I'm going with this, right? So, how long should I wait? I say don't. For an email contact request, the quality of your web lead decreases exponentially after the first 5 minutes. After the first hour, it is about 70%, worth about 30% of what it was when it came through. Okay, so don't wait. Especially for those of you who said that your goal for this, who answered our poll, that for generating leads, this is it, man. That's a lead. And if you're working with an organization, or you're spending money, or you're spending your own time and effort on generating inbound leads, when you get one, act on it, right? It's your responsibility to do so. It's my responsibility to do so here, and I take it very seriously, okay? Another great question. What are some tips at winning at phone tag? That just came in. How do I get started setting up my sales pipeline? That last one, we're way over time. That last one, we're offering a free demo. We'll take care of that in the demo for those of you who choose to take us up on that offer. And tips at winning at phone tag happens to be one of those things that is mentioned in our 25 things every business should automate ebook, which and more than happy to talk to you about that. My name is Mike Canberry. I'm Director of Business Development here at Webolutions. My colleague is Jack Snyder. Jack, thanks for your help today, brother. And thank you all very much for joining us today. And be well. We'll look forward to speaking with you again in the future. 303-300-2640, info@webolutions.com. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.